So, Chris, I just wanted to say, first of all, that a few months ago, I had a great time directing you. And part of my job at Big Finish is to sort of, I suppose, be in charge of allocating people to work on different projects. And I'm really pleased that everyone who's worked with you has had such a fantastic time.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for that.
Well, I've had a fantastic time too.
Now, here are the questions. How did you originally get into acting?
I think I did a play at Eccleston College. I was resitting my O-levels at Eccleston College, and the school I'd been to before then was a little bit rougher, and a sixth form environment was not as rough. And so I kind of became a bigger character, and the drama teacher said to me, I was messing about in the communal area. He said, well, if you're going to do that, you might as well come in here and do this play. So he put me in a play, and I remember I had to wear mascara. I thought about this question. And I think it's because I enjoyed wearing mascara, I became an actor. Anyway, so I did that play, and then I really didn't know what I was going to do. And my mum told me about a foundation course in drama, A-level drama. I was taking it semi-seriously, but I was like most students, I was pleasure-seeking. And while I was there, somebody mentioned London and drama schools. So it was that, really. It was Manchester, Salford in 1981, not the Manchester we know now, post-industrial, 2 years into Thatcher. Everybody wants to live in Manchester now. Then everybody wanted to get out. And I wanted to get out. I wanted to avoid, with respect, what my mum and dad had done and my brothers, which was a 9 to 5. So it wasn't really any great passion to be an actor. It was just to escape. So I managed to get myself into a drama school, Central School of Speech and Drama. And I started there. I left home. Nobody had ever left home. None of our lot had ever been an actor. Nobody had, my mum, my dad, both my brothers are living within 10 miles of where they were born. And I went to London and did 3 years at a drama school. And I think it was only when I got to drama school that I thought I better take this seriously. And then when I came out of drama school, I had 3 years unemployment, did a variety of jobs, thought it had gone. And then I got going somehow.
It's quite difficult to know when you feel you have permission to get out there and perform, because if you've got no experience of that happening in your life in any other way.
We were asked to read Henry V, and the English teacher, very good English teacher, and we gave her a nightmare. We plagued her. Mrs. Morris, she was a very good teacher. She read Henry V, and she allocated parts, and she gave me Llewellyn, and I attempted a Welsh accent. I was a kid. And my attempts, and he's also a comic character, my attempts at the Welsh accent made the class laugh. And I remember enjoying that. But I think a lot of my exhibitionism was rooted in football. All the footballers I loved, George Best, Cruyff, were very creative, very left brain, almost like dancers. And I played a lot of football, and football is a spectator sport. So, and I still feel that now when I go on a set, or I go on a stage, I feel like I'm running out onto the pitch.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it, when you're playing a leading character as well? It's sort of down to you to dictate the mood of the production, isn't it? Because everyone looks to you.
Yeah, very important. And interestingly, when I played football, I was a central midfielder, and they tend to run the game. You're a forward and you're a defender. It's all from that central area. And spatial awareness on stage and on sets all came to me from football. That was my dream, was to be a footballer. But I was nowhere near good enough, so I found another way to show off and express myself.
Who made a difference in your early career?
Phyllida Lloyd. Definitely Phyllida Lloyd, who went on to be very well known for directing, I think it's called The Iron Lady, the film about Thatcher. And she also was the original director and conceived Mamma Mia, which became a stage phenomenon. Phyllida came to see us at drama school. We had a thing called speeches, where you present a Shakespeare speech, a classical speech, and a contemporary speech. But in 1989, somebody said to her, Chris Eccleston still hasn't got an equity card.
Which is a big thing then, wasn't it?
It was a catch-22 situation. You needed an equity card to work, but in order to get an equity card, you had to work. She waited, and as soon as I had an equity card, she gave me a job in a theatre. And she then followed that up by giving me another job a year later. And she'd remembered me from the speeches in 86. So that was in 89.
She must have seen something in you then. Sort of.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you can imagine where my confidence was after 3 years. A lot of my mates had got off to a flyer, but I came out, even though I had the best casting in the third year. I got great roles, but no agent chose me. Nobody picked me up, which at the time I felt was entirely justified because I didn't think I was much cop. I never have. It's just not the way I am. So I thought it was over, really. I thought I was going to gravitate into stage management and working on the crew, which is what I was doing. Because after 3 years, after leaving a prestigious drama school, you haven't got anywhere. And it's good this for people watching it because it's not necessarily over. And within 2 years of doing 2 very small parts in repertory, I was given the lead in a feature film. I went, and I don't say this with any pride, it's just an observation. I went from being the least successful person in my year to the most successful.
Shows how luck can...
Looks massive. And the role that I played, Derek Bentley in Let Him Have It, was turned down by another actor who looked far more like Derek Bentley than I did. But I think he had a lot of choice at the time, so he turned it down. Luck. I think you get that bit of luck, and then you have to work very hard to make it work for you.
Well, and I think when you've got a lack of, like I have when I came out of drama school, I think we were chatting the other day and I said I just fell off a cliff. And then you lose any confidence. You don't think you have permission to do anything.
I went to an audition for a theatre director. I won't name him. And I thought he'd said it very kindly, but I did an audition and afterwards he chatted to me and he said, "How are you feeling?" And he said, "I think you might want to start thinking about doing something else." And I was obviously completely lacking in confidence.
That self-belief, isn't it? It's quite a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Which actors did you admire as a youngster?
James Cagney, and Patrick McGowan.
Oh.
And Gene Kelly. I used to try and dance like Gene Kelly on the oilcloth in the kitchen. And I remember seeing Jimmy Cagney doing 2 films. I think it's Angels with Dirty Faces, where he plays a gangster who is a hero to a load of kids, and there's a priest in it. And he's forever dealing with the kids, saying, "Don't do what I did. Don't be like me." So he's got a good side to him. And at the end of the film, he goes to the electric chair. And I think the priest says something to him about, these kids are going to be reading the newspapers about how you went to your death. And he's a tough guy. So you think he's going to go to his death defiantly. And the camera's on him. It's brilliant, this. Because it's about acting and performance. As I remember it really fascinated me, this, as a child. The camera's on him and you think he's going to be a tough guy, and he's going to be a tough guy. And then suddenly he breaks down and starts screaming and crying and begging for his life. And the kids read it. And I think they're disappointed in him. And the thing about it is, as a viewer, you're going, was he really scared? Or was he doing that for the kids, so they won't follow his example? Because he'd have been heroic to them if he'd have gone as a tough guy. So there's a performative element to it. The ambiguity. I didn't know whether he'd done it on purpose. I've never forgotten that. And then, of course, I'd see him in, I think it was White Heat. He seemed very real, top of the world, playing these gangsters. And then he'd be a dancer as well. And I think he felt very European, Cagney, to me. I know he's an American, but there's a kind of Irish energy to it, and he a bit like McGowan, another Celt. You felt like they almost broke through the screen.
Yeah.
They were very unpredictable. And I think going with that, I think when I was 20, I had a job at the National Theatre as an usher. I was at drama school, and I saw Anthony Hopkins on stage in a show called Pravda, and that changed everything for me. Because I hadn't really located myself. I thought actors had to be like Jeremy Irons or Anthony Andrews. And then I saw Hopkins on stage, and it felt like he was going to jump off the stage and punch somebody or leave. And I read about him, and, he was a baker's son from Port Talbot, my kind of background. But what he did on stage, his presence on stage, I've never seen anything as exciting as that in Pravda, ever.
I think those actors have all got something in common. They don't seem to have anything about them that needs to be loved.
Yeah, that's true. I've always, and I've played a lot of character, it's that thing, if the audience are so intelligent, you don't have to beg for mercy. You don't have to, they just tell the truth. The audience will find some humanity in you, but not afraid to be unsympathetic. Yeah, I like that. Real.
Yeah.
Real. I mean, in my background, that's what you're looking for. And that's Scorsese's films, Mean Streets, the early ones, that's what you recognise. It's an energy as well. Hopkins had an energy on stage that I kind of equated with my background of football. And there was something untamed about it, not led by the head, from the heart and the gut, and very physical. So it made it like sport. So I thought, okay, I can do it. It made it gladiatorial rather than of the head.
Well, we mentioned, you said that if you hadn't been an actor, you might have gone into football. Is that
Well, I would've-
anything?
Yeah, I would have, but I was never good enough. And without acting, what would I have done? I mean, I'd probably been some kind of labourer, I think. Maybe my brother was a builder, my other brother was an upholsterer. I might have worked for them. I really don't know. I thought vaguely about journalism at one point. Something about the truth.
What about writing in general?
Well, I mean, writing's my obsession. I read about the writing process all the time. I'm fiercely protective of my writers on set. But I've never done it. I've never attempted it. I don't think I have the personality to sit alone. But that is definitely the thread of my career. I was a voracious reader as a child. All the television I watched in the 60s, 70s and 80s was hugely writer-led. The writer was the most important thing. As well as the cast list, you always knew that it was Potter or Bleasdale or Jim Allen. You always knew who'd written it. And that was amplified at drama school because, it was a theatre training, so you train with Shakespeare or Ibsen and Chekhov.
That's an interesting thing of working with you. I work with a lot of actors, and quite a large number of them want to change the script.
Yeah.
And you didn't, and you knew I was the writer when I was directing you,
Yeah.
but you didn't want to change the script at all. And occasionally I'd say, I don't think this line is serving us well, so I'd like to alter it. And you'd always be very much sort of, well, if you're sure, it's not, you were kind of saying it's up to you because I don't want to force this one.
Yeah, I think writers can be, they're quite vulnerable, and having lived in Hollywood and seen how bottom of the food chain they are, I mean, in Europe, certainly in the UK, they're further up the food chain. But in the time I've been in the industry, I've seen a change. It used to be, what do the writers want to write about? And now it's about what role does X, Y, or Z want to play? And that way madness lies, because actors are only good because of their scripts. And it creates chaos if the lead actor starts going, oh, I'll just change this and I'll just change that. Well, first of all, you're not a writer. You haven't spent a year thinking of that line. And if you start doing it, what's the prop man going to do? What's everybody else going to... I mean, tweaks, absolutely. But it's always about asking permission.
When did you first think, I've made it as an actor? This is my career now?
I think I have to let him have it. I'm still not convinced it's my career. You know, my career has been about trying to be an actor for 40 years, and I will continue trying to be an actor if I can get a job. You know that you know, unless you're in the top 10%, you don't know where the next job's coming from.
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, you're a known name, your track record is proven, and I think that people think, oh, I think we might get Chris Eccleston to do that. I think
but it doesn't happen all the time. You see, that's the perception I have with the public.
You know, my solution was diversification when I could tell.
Smart. I wish I'd have thought of that. I think there's a thing about being an actor, you're always waiting for the phone ring to ring, and you're always dependent on others. And I wish I'd have addressed that at an earlier age and had a few more strings to my bow.
I do sometimes look, I haven't looked at you in this way, I have to say, but I do sometimes look at casts I work with and hear the chat in the green room, and I feel sorry for them, because I think, well, I would hate to be in your position, and luckily...
waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah. Here's some general philosophical questions.
Oh, okay.
What is your favourite virtue?
Honesty. Yeah.
There's no substitute for it.
No.
And yet isn't it almost impossible to be honest all the time?
I've tried. It's lost me a lot of jobs. Yeah, it is, of course.
People don't want to hear it a lot of the time, do they, really?
Well, but as a core, you know, when it comes to it, I have friends who will say, no, you're out of order.
Yeah.
Those are the people who I keep closest.
Yeah.
What you're good to realise is that you're just the tip of an iceberg, which is why, well, I always know I'm only there because of a writer. Yeah. Not because of a producer or director, I'm there because of the writer. So that's, you know.
What are your favourite qualities in other people, in a person?
Well, it'd be honesty, again, sense of humour, irreverence, bravery, which is the same thing, really, especially in our industry. You know, if you know, actors are very fearful of losing work, aren't they, by saying what they think, but they're usually the best actors when you see them on camera, because they've held on to themselves. They've not sold themselves for the job. I think you get the camera on and go, oh.
The honesty thing is so important, because people think it's all about size of performance and intensity. It's not. As long as it's true,
truthful,
it's detectable, isn't it? The truth is, the camera's a bit of a lie detector, like the microphone as well.
And like the audience are in a theatre. I've always been, like most actors, seized on the negative things that are said about me rather than the positive things in a review or
one bad review.
But in the end, as an actor, you have to be self-sustaining. In the end, you have to be, just do it for yourself. I mean, what you do is, if you get a load of good reviews or you get a nomination, what I've always done, a nomination or good reviews, I personally just look at it and go, that might mean I'll get another job.
Yeah.
That might put money in my pocket. Any praise, I just think, doesn't matter. It's like you're running a business, and if somebody says you're a great builder, you stick it on the side of the... I can see the pragmatism in that. What I can tell you is, and I've been nominated and I've been praised, and I've also been slagged off mercilessly. It doesn't change my idea of me as an actor, but it changes my idea of me as a business model, because you're running a business. Yeah. They all read that. Fine. You're no different. Just what they're thinking. And then you can pay the mortgage.
What's your favourite job performance you've been in?
Trying and failing with Macbeth and Hamlet. I think I felt most engaged in my working life playing Hamlet at the West Yorkshire Playhouse, as it was then. It's now the Leeds Playhouse again, which is great, in 2004, and then Macbeth. Being on stage is as exciting as it gets for me. Personal favourites with television, Hillsborough. And I think I did, again, written by Jimmy McGovern, called Hearts and Minds, where I played Jimmy's. It was a version of Jimmy's life as a teacher. I connected with that very fiercely. It was a show I did on Channel 4, and it was my first lead role on television. But I've been very fortunate. I've done a lot. Our friends in the North, I've done a lot, all with great writers. It's all about the Jimmy McGovern, you know, and Peter Flannery, Russell T Davies, Pete Bowker. I've worked with very good writers, and they've made me look good.
I very much enjoyed your Macbeth, by the way.
Thank you. You're lucky I didn't fall on you. I fell off the stage in the third preview right into the audience. Yeah.
How did you recover?
I just got back up, but as I got back up on the stage, I ripped all the muscles, my intercostal muscles in my back. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you go on?
And that's a good actor story, you know, because the whole thing of my life, my career, the one thing I wanted to do more than anything was play Macbeth at the Royal Shakespeare Company. That's what I wanted to do. For some reason, I thought that was it, and I fell off the stage.
Did you have to go off after you?
No, I carried on. And then I did about 30 shows on painkillers. Yeah.
What's your favourite performance you've seen recently?
I can't think of one recently, but my favourite performance I've ever seen was Hopkins. I have to stick with that. Nothing's has impressed me more than Anthony Hopkins as Lambert LaRue in the National Theatre production of Pravda, directed by David Hare and written by David Hare and Howard Brenton. I'm not a great watcher of drama. I watch documentaries a lot. It's busman's holiday for me. I find it, you know, I know how it's done. I love documentary.
I was just thinking Albert Finney. I saw Albert Finney twice. I saw him in Art.
Oh, you saw him on stage?
Yeah. And he was remarkable.
Oh, I've seen him on stage.
I watched him from the Gods in Art. And he was the only member. I think it's only 3 people in Art, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And he was the only member of the cast. Everyone was great, you know, Tom Courtenay and Ken Stott. But he was the only one who made sure he lifted his head quite a lot to give us a performance. Then I saw him the opposite, or I think I'd seen this before, in the Biko inquest at the Riverside. And I was sitting as close to him as I am to you now. And he was just acting the whole time as the lawyer there and puffing and wheezing and getting documents out of his jacket. It was just, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, he's trained old school, though, wasn't he? He's like Hopkins. They kind of learnt their craft on a big stage.
Yeah. What's your idea of happiness?
Being with Albert and Esme, my children.
That's easy, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never been happier. Never been happier in anything I've ever done. Watching those two play, watching those two interact, looking after them, amazing.